Welcome to Mike and Mike Theology Plus, the podcast where we talk about all things related to Christian theology. Welcome to Mike and Mike Theology Plus,
where theology matters.
And today, if you're watching the video, you already know. If you're on the podcast, you don't know.
Right.
But maybe you do now.
Yeah.
Because we're joined by Kiefer and Sarah.
Yes.
You want to say your last name?
Well,
or do you want to be anonymous?
We're anonymous.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
No, I don't care.
We're going to drop our voice a lower octave, and then
we'll
we'll darken us out a little bit.
I'll put the
Yeah. I dig it. The names have been changed for the protection of the people, for sure. Yeah.
So, we've actually talked about Kiefer and Sarah in the past on our podcast,
Where we definitely did not call them the Navies.
Oh,
and
did we
there's
already
the
call them that?
last name.
Yeah.
So we're
At least I
good.
pronounced it right.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So we're good, though. That's fine.
So Kiefer and Sarah help us admin a Facebook group, which if you're not already a member, I suggest you join.
Oh, yeah.
Theology
Theology
Matters. There you go.
I had to wear it.
Yeah.
You had to.
It's good.
I figured if anyone's watching, they would
Right.
See it. They'd be
Hopefully.
like, oh, man.
Right.
That'd be cool. So, we thought we'd talk about a couple topics. So we're actually going to be recording, I think, 3 different podcasts.
Yeah.
And if committed for the long haul.
Right.
So.
But we do have Sarah May come and go because their daughter is in the nursery back.
Yeah,
So
she's losing her mind.
So she walks away
Conveniently.
from the video or on the audio. If you don't hear her for a while, that's fine.
Yeah.
She's
Yep.
just.
I'm actually not allowed to speak, so
Yeah,
I'm
it's
here.
yeah, and the kid slept for 2 hours in the car on the way here. She slept 2/3 of the way here,
Yeah.
but now as we sit down to record,
Of course,
she's
yeah.
like, "Hear me
Like a
roar."
baby.
Right.
So,
No,
but
it's all good.
anyways, well, thanks for having us. We're very excited.
I'm so excited that we drove 3 hours.
We did,
to come do this with you. So
and to eat at Poogan's Porch as well.
yes.
Which I don't know if we can say. We may have to buy the rights for me to say Poogan's Porch. I reference a lot of stuff, so there's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
royalties
Hold on
you
to your
guys are going
butts.
to have to chip out.
Well, I think they had to pay us for advertising, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it works.
And the good news
Yeah.
is nobody listens to this, so we'll never be caught.
Perfect.
The Poogan's Porch is gonna get tagged, and they're gonna be like, "What's this?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh no, I owe him $1."
Yeah, we're going to get a sponsor.
So, yeah.
So I think we're going to talk about the church, or to use the big $5 word, ecclesiology.
Yes. Which is my favorite book of the Bible as well. The wisdom literature, Ecclesiology.
Yeah, that's good.
But I think that's it. But yeah, sorry, I've already derailed this.
No, it's
That's
good.
my bad.
It's all good. So, I was mentioning that I had written a paper for my master's degree, and that one of the possibilities for the podcast was I could just read all 9 pages of that for everyone, which would probably be a very interesting podcast.
I'd go home.
I would listen to it. It'd be like listening to something on Audible, which is another royalty thing. Sorry. Well, maybe now Audible will sponsor this.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, you'll have to say, sign up and get a free book.
That's right.
So you're welcome.
Well, actually, on 2 podcasts ago, timeline-wise, it just posted yesterday, actually. I actually did put a link into an Audible book for Improbable Planet, but, so that was in the doobly-doo.
Is that a C.S. Lewis book?
No.
Sorry.
That's out of the Silent Planet.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, Improbable Planet is by Hugh Ross. So
I have been seeing that pop around. Is it really good?
I thought it was really, really good. He talks about all the things that would have had to happen and how, while there may be billions and billions of stars, there's no one spot in our whole universe that's just like our spot.
Word.
Yeah. So
That sounds interesting. I'd be into that.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that. So I really want to get Vern Poythress' new book. on Eden and like the first like 3 chapters of Genesis. It looks really interesting, but his books are super boring. Sorry, Vern, Dr. Vern. They're really that when you buy a Vern Poythress book, you are saying something about yourself, or ordering, because Lifeway doesn't carry his books, but. There's too much of Heaven is for Real on the shelves to make room for.
Or there's a lot of Beth Moore in there.
Yeah, I actually, and this is not.
There's like 3 different versions of Jesus Calling.
3?
There's like 12.
There's like 12.
Okay, 12.
It gets its
Well,
own
there's Jesus
shelf.
Calling.
Jesus Calling
There's
for
Jesus
teens.
Coming Home. There's Jesus Calling 2.
Well, I'm just talking about
there's a couple.
just Jesus Calling for teens and for kids and the
Pregnant
normal
teens.
ones.
Well, then you got the
non-pregnant
hardback,
teens,
and you
yeah.
got the leather, and then
Yeah.
you got like the simulated, and then she's
Yeah.
written 3 or 4 sequels. And
She has for sure. And then there's always the gift, the Jesus Calling for firefighters. Jesus Calling for it's something. And then they also have a Gaither Homecoming Study Bible, which I saw the last time I was in there. But what I was saying about the theology is I was actually in there because they're closing all their brick and mortar stores.
yeah,
Literally, the theology section was 11 books. It was
were
4
they all
copies.
MacArthur?
No, they had no MacArthur, and it
Really?
was just 4 copies of the 11 books. And I was like, "Is this all the theology have?" And they're like, "Yeah, they took all the others." And I'm like, "Okay." And I went. I almost picked up a copy for Brian Cole's listening. They had the Heiser book. It was half off, and I still didn't buy it. It was like $11. Still didn't pull the trigger. So, anyways, but. So yeah, church. I'm actually interested. I want to read your paper.
All right, yeah. I
Not
can-
right now. You don't have to read it out loud now.
But what I can do, since I referenced it, I could like put it in Dropbox and put the link here. But then I could also maybe post it on Theology Matters for comment and
Yeah, that'd be good.
discussion. So
That would be really good. I forget that we're recording this as well. Do I need to look at that?
no, no one wants to see you looking.
That's
at
true.
It. So it's good.
That's true.
If she starts making any sound out.
Oh no, she's fine. She's
We don't ever look at it really.
Okay,
It,
cool.
It feels very like I know you're supposed to, but I just can't ever make that feel natural.
yeah. So we
So
get
we just
about,
look at each other a lot.
We get about 40 people regularly listen to the podcast, which
That's
I think
awesome.
is success.
Through Anchor.
Yeah.
And
Through
I
it,
am one
yeah.
of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so you get to hear this one. And then maybe 5 or 6 through
Okay.
YouTube. But it still feels
Well, now you're going
right.
to start getting sponsors because of me.
Right.
So
I only watched the video.
where there's a will, there's a subway.
Oh, okay.
So there's another one.
There's only one way.
It's not Subway, that's for sure.
I only
So-
watched it once to find out whose voice belonged to who because I was getting really bothered.
Right.
You know, so
So
I had
that's
to figure
when
out
you
who I
want-
liked the most.
Right.
So
Yeah, she definitely plays favorites. Yeah, 100%. So cool. So church stuff.
Yeah, so the church. So
Ecclesiology.
we were talking about before, because the ecclesiology is kind of a big topic.
It's broad. Yeah.
And I think, what's the purpose of the church? Our church has a saying that you will hear tomorrow. If I'm assuming you are visiting tomorrow.
We're gonna try.
Okay.
We're gonna try. We may have to leave earlier than we expected.
Okay. So if you do show up tomorrow, then you will hear us say that we exist to glorify God by bringing sinners to Christ and saints to Christ likeness, which I think is a really good, tight, compact. Because it's kind of got the overall purpose is to glorify God, which is
Right.
all of our lives, and then the functions are it's been bandied about a couple ways: evangelism, edification, witness, and there's another W that goes along with witnessing, but all these kind of the bringing people in and then building them up, which is all based on Matthew 18 of making disciples, baptizing them, teaching them to do all that I commanded to you.
You might find that in Matthew 28.
28.
Yeah.
Yeah.
18 has a different purview for the church.
Yeah. I was trying to think.
Yeah.
Matthew 28.
Right.
I almost said 18 again.
Yeah.
It's
Well, that deals with ecclesiology.
yeah, it does.
It's true.
It does.
It's
a
yeah.
different
Kind of
side
different
of it.
aspect,
It's
yeah.
not the
Right.
bringing in, but the
Yeah.
taking out if necessary.
Well, hopefully bringing back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the goal
Right.
of it ultimately.
Really? Well, no, because everybody always says we just want to kick people out and be judgmental. Isn't that the point of Matthew 18?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, it makes me feel
just
better
get
about
rid of
myself.
People who don't look or act or talk like you at all.
Right.
And this is just the easy way. Just 1, 2, 3, they're gone.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I took away from it.
Nice.
Or the Gaither Home Study Bible.
That's what it says in there.
Yes.
Has like a note on the side.
It's honestly under the given to line.
Yeah.
It's like this Bible is presented by, and then it said that.
Okay.
Which is a weird part to put that footnote right there. But sorry, you need to do more talking because I will derail this.
No, it's
real
good.
bad. Sorry.
No,
You've listened to the podcast before, right?
Yes, I have. Sorry. Now I just get to add to it.
We need to bring them to an Apollos meeting one time.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. So, but we weren't. I've got a lot of, as I mentioned before, we started a lot of P's here, which in my book means it's inspired by the Holy Spirit, because you only get that alliteration if the Holy Spirit comes up on you strongly in a strong way. Obviously, I'm joking. So you'd specifically mentioned maybe talking about the church government.
Yeah, like offices in the church.
Yeah, and maybe people in the church.
Mm-hmm.
So I can keep talking. I want, but do you want to maybe say what you were going to say, or
Can we start with a mission, possibly, like a general overall of the mission and how that ties into it? Because I don't I mean, I've been in this area for a few minutes, but like the mission of the church in Charlotte, and it's a lot different than what the biblical mission, I would say, is. So I think clarifying like that. So for like me, I think the church is for believers. I don't think it's a primary like weapon of evangelism, but it's the reverse in Charlotte. In the Charlotte, it's very much like
is it like every single church in Charlotte is reversed,
Most.
or just okay?
Is that where Furtick is?
yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
yes sir, it is, and it's on
The man
every-
who has actually said, if you want to be discipled, this isn't the church for you.
Precisely.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And
Precisely.
everywhere you go, there are stickers of said church.
Yeah.
We already said verdict. So yeah, elevation. So it's really, you have to be careful what you say, because if you're in a room and you're talking crap about elevation, there's probably a handful of people that are going to.
Can she say that word?
We
Okay,
might
so
bleep her out.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. After I said that, I realized.
Straighten it out.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
You
But
just
anyways,
ran through your head what you said.
I was like,
But yeah, no,
But
you
if
really
you say
did.
something negative about it, you have to be
Right.
careful, because there's probably someone that either has gone or is consistently going.
Right.
So
That's not terribly dissimilar here. With we've got two very large churches, New Spring.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Seacoast.
Yeah.
So-
I forgot about that.
They're both very seeker friendly.
Yes.
Um,
And it's the purveying, and a lot of people are saved through that. And that's not, and it's not necessarily that they stay, but they may be saved through that church, and then they think that's just how church should be, if that makes sense. So they kind of carry that with them everywhere they go. So that's something that definitely, like, I think it's like, oh, well, this is how it's supposed to be, so I'm going to go to this thing, and then if it's not like that, if it doesn't have the lights, if it doesn't have the show, if it doesn't have the band, if it doesn't have,
lattes.
yeah, pretty
kids
much.
ministry.
So like someone reached out to me at one point and was asking for a church suggestion, and I was like, well, what are you looking for? And it was uplifting message, great music,
K-Love.
and a kids band, not a kids band. It's not a band of children playing.
Kids
So,
ministry.
like-
Kids,
Program,
solid kids,
program,
what?
we call it.
Lakewood.
No, not.
I mean, does it not check all of those boxes?
Right?
Yeah,
It does.
and that's every mega church in Charlotte has all of those things, and that's what people are looking for. But for me, when we joined our church, they sent us an article. I think it was Keach. I think it was a Benjamin Keach excerpt where the marks of a true church are expository preaching, proper administration of the sacraments, and biblical discipline.
Yeah.
Is pretty much the marks of the
Right.
three.
Which was the standard in the Reformation.
Yes.
I mean, that's how they defined the church.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I was like, I literally went through my list, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I have a church for you. I mean, like, I do have a church for you,
Yeah.
but I don't have the church that you're going to like.
Well, what's funny is that person had just left the exact church that she described.
Right. And there
So-
were a church that gave away, I played there one time, and they gave away a copy of a Joel Osteen book. Yeah. So
Is that the church that gave away a car at Easter?
No, but that's very
they
close
have before.
to us.
Okay.
They have before, but no, that is super close to us. The one church that was close to us this year, if you invited 20 people, they gave you a flat screen television. So,
Which is just
Easter Sunday is becoming
So
Black
much.
Friday, but
there's just so much wrong. There's
So
much
it's
wrong with
Good
that.
Friday, then Easter, not Black
Black Friday,
They've got that mixed up.
right, for
That's
sure.
the-
So it's just, and that purveying culture is something that you almost have to fight. Like you almost have to tell someone, like, "Hey, look, I want you to come to my church. You know,
We're
your
not going
kids-
to pay you to be here.
We're not going to pay you to be here. Your kids are going to sit with you."
Yeah.
Are you guys family integrated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a nursery, but
We do have a nursery, but it's like trying to tell people like that, you know, the band is not going to open with a top 40 hit or a song they wrote. It's going to be a hymn of sorts. The preaching is going to be a little bit longer, and it's probably going to touch on some nerves a little bit. And then, you know, and we have 3 elders, and we can get all into all of this stuff, but you know, it's those 2 things right there, just the sermon and the
How
music.
many of your elders are women?
All of them, actually. We yeah, no. I was gonna try to go with it, but I can't because we live in the same village from the movie The Village, so it's just really hard to find. That's what hurts our church the most is the secluded location. But, anyways,
We need to have like a sarcasm sign. That
Yeah,
we all
yeah,
know.
really
we
does
really
make it
do,
like
we
light
really
it up
do.
because
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So,
Beating
anyways,
the
no.
table and he's
Yeah.
don't take this seriously.
Yes, that's what you should do. But
I always know usually.
yeah.
Usually.
But anyway, so church-wise, that's, and again, if you
Yeah.
have it here, is you're fighting that prevailing culture. It's like, you know, you invite your friends, and they will come once, and then they won't, and they'll never bring it up again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of something you're fighting. So then for me,
Yeah.
the mission of the church would be more so building the believers to be sent out.
And in what you described, how much of that would you say is like rigid biblical, and what would you say there's some leeway on? Because we're integrated during our worship service, except for we do have like nursery for younger kids, and then after our worship service, we have a kids' church where our kids will exit, but that's really designed for
5 to 5th grade.
we say 5th grade. For me, once our kids get 3rd or 4th, especially if they claim to be believers, I say, okay,
Right.
it's now time for you to start staying in the service.
Yeah. I think for sure when they start, because like when she grabbed a picture the last time I preached, and when I was reading, there was like a 5-year-old. She's 5 or 7.
She's like 5.
She's 5, and she grabbed like the Bible out of the pew and like opened it. It was like, because she's seen what her parents did.
Right.
So I would lean a little bit more on that. Is it distracting at times? Yeah, I mean, kids are going to be kids and make sound. I think in the biblical sense, I feel like a lot of the original churches were probably home churches, so it just was natural, and it happened unless they were meeting in the temple or the tabernacle. So it's just there.
Yeah, I guess for me, it seems like there's stuff that's tradition and stuff that's biblical. And like if we were to have a church in a different country, some of the things that we would feel like, wow, this is kind of integral to a church, I think we'd find, that's not really like, so I guess I would say, what's the locus?
The non-negotiables?
Yeah, the non-negotiables. And then what would be like some of the stuff that would be somewhat negotiable, perhaps.
I mean, I think the 3 things I named: expository preaching, and proper administration of the sacraments, and biblical discipline.
Yeah, I definitely agree on
those
all
things.
those.
I won't. And like I'll admit, like I've definitely sacrificed on those things because I'm a musician and I like playing with good artists and good musicians and things like that. So I've definitely like sometimes taken a back seat on that, but. Marriage really changed a lot of that, especially being like responsible for my wife and getting us in a church, because I was basically playing at like a different church every weekend for a while, and that was just unhealthy. And then we got married and we helped plant a church in Charlotte. We're not at anymore, but it's just trying to find a church where we can go to together that I trust. But it's like preaching is what I'm first now looking for versus a band to play with.
Right.
So like even my own heart that's transferred, but and then also being prideful because I was into like theology at a young age and learned stuff. There was that attitude of like, you can't really tell me nothing, or you can't straighten me out or anything because I know more than you or something. It's that kind of pride died down. That was killed really fast, and love at our church. So our church is very good on things like that and very open about stuff like that. So I would say those are the 3 non-negotiables. You can take. It doesn't bother me if you play a more updated song or something like that. It doesn't bother me.
It's like Reckless Love.
Oh man, that one was.
Let's not open that can. Let us
that
not.
That one was bad. It's the Reckless Love, the Sloppy Wet. It's all Sloppy Wet Kiss.
I think. Well,
That one I don't know.
You don't know that one?
What is it?
Sloppy Wet Kiss.
Oh, I don't
Heaven
know
meets
that.
Earth like a sloppy wet kiss.
No.
That's a Charlotte guy who wrote that.
The one that really drove me crazy was by Mike's Chair, and it was saying that
That's a name I haven't heard in a
you were
minute.
worthy. That he died for you. I don't even remember it. And
I've never heard of them.
Mike's Chair.
I remember Mike's Chair.
But I've never
Maybe.
really been big into Christian music
I was for a while.
because like
I had to be.
Yeah.
I'm just not a music guy. I play guitar, or I don't know if I can still claim that, but I've never, for the last 10 years, if I'm in the car by myself, I'm going to listen to a podcast or a sermon.
Right.
Just not saying, oh, look at me, I'm holy, but that's just what I want to do.
Yeah.
Just listening to a whole bunch of music is not entertaining to me.
Someone worth dying for.
Oof.
Yeah.
So I think those are definitely 3 non. And then whether you do family integrated, whether you have, except like some churches, they just, they don't have the ability, they don't have the space. It's like, you know what, like maybe we have someone in our church who has a real heart for discipling young children. We've got a couple moms who live for it, but you don't have the space. So it's tough. So I'm not going to say it's like, well, we're going to be integrated for a while and then we're going to do this. And if you can, you can. It's not necessarily a hill I'm willing to die on, but I do think I think there can be fruit in both routes.
Yeah.
So other than the rosary, what other sacraments would you put in?
The first part of your sentence is always I'm trying to think. Definitely pictures of Jesus.
Right.
I like those.
Right.
Icons for
Right.
sure.
Stained glass windows.
Stained glass windows for
Right.
sure. I mean, I just think that a proper administration, and we say it every week. We have, and we can talk about this because he wants to talk about. Well, you're stepping away.
When the lightning comes, I want to be safe.
Right.
I think God has a sense of humor.
But
I mean, clearly we would say baptism is a sacrament, right? Would
yes,
you say that? Okay.
Yes, and I think
Lord's Supper.
for sure.
Yeah.
Now I've heard you sometimes put church discipline under the title of sacrament. Is that true?
No.
Oh, okay.
Slander.
Something else? Anything else other than those two?
Just the two.
Just the two.
Just the two.
Okay. Okay. We're pretty agreed. I thought I heard you say that, which I thought I've never heard church discipline be put under the title of sacrament before. So I think we're all agreed.
Yeah,
Those two.
yeah, and our church does it. And again, proper administration is we are open, but we do fence if someone's under church discipline, which I think is an appropriate thing to do. That's not happened, I don't believe, while we've been there. If it is, I've missed it. I'm kind of like. So a quick a quick story. Someone spray painted our communion cup holder. Like the thing, they just sprayed it because I guess it looked bad. So they spray painted it, so now the cups stick a little bit. So the first time I did communion was Christmas Eve, and one of the elders grabbed one. It was stuck. He was like, it's fine. Just grab the one next to it. 2 rows later, person goes for the same cup and is committed. And it's that plastic little things. She grabs it, fights it, it cracks, explodes, goes all over me, goes all over her, and I haven't administered communion since. They asked me to, and I was like, I can't do it. I got a trimmer in my hand. I can't handle it. But anyway,
You got
so
the
like,
yips with communion?
yeah. So like, I haven't personally. I don't think it's happened. And we always read. We make sure I pulled up 1 Corinthians 11. So then whoever eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty of sin against the body and blood of the Lord. Let a person examine himself in this way. Let him eat the bread and drink from the cup. Whoever eats and drinks without recognizing the body eats and drinks judgment on himself. So we always read that. We want to make sure we come to that, which that's another argument for the Pedo Credo argument, especially as we were going to talk about it a little bit with having believers and non-believers mixed, and you serve them communion. You're kind of like aiding and abetting in a way, which is a concern.
Right. Do you think? So I've had this discussion, and I think probably based on how you use those verses, we may have a slight disagreement about what Paul's saying there. But I was raised with that, so I just want to throw this out, and we don't have to come to an agreement. But it seems like to me what Paul is saying is that during the Corinthian church, you had the rich landowners, masters, whatever, showing up at the love feast and taking communion, the Lord's Supper, to such an excess that they're getting drunk, right? Paul's like, you're getting drunk at your love feast. Can't you get drunk at home? I think that's what he says, something like that.
Well, he says you get drunk. Can't you drink at home?
Right, yeah. And then he kind of chides them, like, don't you... And then these other people come in from the field, and they, there's nothing left for them to partake. And it seems like that's the context of when he's saying, don't take it in an unworthy manner. Like, so I guess I struggled with... I've heard people, even people I love and trust and think a lot of, say, well, if you have unrepentant sin, or if you're an unbeliever and you take the Lord's Supper, then this is what Paul's talking about. But I guess I just don't see it from the context, so maybe I'm just missing it.
Right. I think it's more so, the chapter heading, the paragraph heading is about self-examination. So I think ultimately it's kind of one of the, I don't want to go like medieval and say that there's multiple layers to the meaning of the text in a way, but I think it's primarily just about self-examination, and especially in the Bible Belt, if you grew up taking communion, there's a way to take it very passively and not take it very seriously, which I would argue that the people in our church are, as far as I know, they're all believers. So and we take it every 5 weeks. So there can definitely be a way to check out, and we always leave an opportunity for silence at the beginning for self-reflection, self-examination, to take it in. Yeah,
and just to be clear, way. I'm not for unrepentant sin.
It's on the record, everyone. Yeah,
I'm not for unbelievers taking the communion. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't know if that verse is for that. Did you pulled up your Bible like you're going to read something? Oh, okay.
He just wanted to make sure I was not making it up as I go.
You got to keep Kiefer in check.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. But yeah. So I think those things, the proper administration, and then I guess the third thing would be since we talked about. Well, I guess I don't even know if we talked about expositional preaching should be self-explanatory.
Right.
And like we do, we're in.
I have a whole topical sermon on why you should be expositional.
That's great. I love it. Really, like, so we're actually, and I've never seen this. We're working through the Gospel of John now, and then once we finish that, we're done with all Johannine literature. So he preached through Revelation last year, which was fantastic. He never said from the pulpit the perspective that he took. But it was basically positive, anal, partial preteristic, which was fantastic. And then we did the we did the three Johns. We did the John's epistles, which I preached the third John, which I haven't read since I dropped out of seminary. So I got married like 7 years ago. Probably haven't read or deeply studied, and that was really fun. But yeah, once we finished John, so just going through, but he's not walking through like verse for verse, spending a sermon on each verse. He does, like, as long as it's expositional, you don't have to John MacArthur it, name drop, and then where you're spending 7 years in Matthew. You can. There's nothing wrong with that.
But if you do that, you can just take the transcripts and then sell them as commentaries.
Yeah. Yep.
We were just talking about how I should get. I said it earlier. I was like, if we go to Lifeway and they have them all on sale, I should buy them. Then I was like, oh yeah, I could just listen to them for free on the app. But
have you ever actually taken a transcript next to the commentary?
Sort of.
I mean, they are lightly edited from
Yes.
the transcript to the book.
Talking about his New Testament
Commentary.
commentaries.
I mean, he basically published them after he preached through that book.
Huh.
Makes sense. Well, I feel like a lot of his topical books are like that as well. I mean, because he does do a lot of topical sermon series in a sense. I think on like his night times, and then he like his evening services, and then he puts those into books. So it
John
doesn't
MacArthur
surprise me.
After Dark.
Yeah. well, I know he does Wednesday night,
Mac
he does
at
Sunday
night.
night.
Yeah.
They do. Anyways, all I'm saying, yes, that doesn't surprise me at all because his books are literally just his
So
transcripts.
expositional preaching, proper administration of the sacraments, and then biblical discipline. So like our church, we have 3 elders, and they all participate in it. But and like our pastor is literally, I mean, I'm gonna gush for sure because I mean we love our church. Like our church is like. We just love it, and we're so happy we had looked, and like not to mess with any or talk trash about anybody, like we just were never fully happy where we were until we found our church, and we've just been elated since we started going and joined, and but our pastor is like, if you've ever read Baxter's Reformed pastor, I mean it's him. Like he knows every person in our church. He knows everything that's going on with them. Like it's awesome. They all have their strengths. Steve does a lot of the preaching. I call them bishops as well to irritate them a little bit. Bishop Steve, Bishop Joe is really great with admin stuff.
That's a
and
great
he's
idea.
a teacher.
It is now Bishop Joel.
Yeah, and then our third elder is actually the biblical counseling professor at the Charlotte RTS.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so he does that, and I think his
They
wife
let pastors teach there.
Sorry.
They let Baptists teach at RTS.
Yes,
He's
I
the
think
only
he's
Baptist
the only one.
on staff.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
wow.
the only one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how he pulled that off,
But yeah, and
Yeah.
they're all great. We love them all,
Yeah.
and we're really blessed to kind of go to have that dynamic. But biblical discipline, and they try to do it in a way that brings them back into the fold. They call to repentance, and they do it really really well from what I've heard. I mean, like I said, I don't think there's been anything since we've been there. But we love our church. And then there's the people of the church, which I guess is the last part of the equation in a way. They just took us in immediately. There's a lot of young parents. We joined when Sarah was pregnant, and we're way behind everyone there. It's like 48 kids. It's like a Mennonite colony.
we
It's
are
wild.
really outnumbered. Probably 4 to 1.
Yeah.
4
So,
kids to 1. Nah.
but anyways, so yeah, those 3 things as far as the church goes, I think are essential, non-negotiable. I think you can see all of those things in Scripture, specifically Matthew 18. Right? It's Matthew 18 is biblical discipline.
That's
right?
just yeah.
Yeah, it's discipline.
So, okay, yeah. I just want not Matthew
And
28.
then it ends with prayer meetings.
Right.
Yes.
Where
Yeah.
2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I will be in your midst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
we're gonna. I think that's one
So
of our
it's
questions.
discipline. Quick change at the end to prayer meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when 3 people pray, it's definitely going to happen.
Right.
Well,
That verse means
sometimes 2.
2 or 3, right?
Yeah, because it's 2 or 3, right?
Then for sure what you pray for is going to happen.
Right.
Yeah,
but
I
if you're
mean-
at home by yourself, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Man,
All of the
that's
other
tough.
promises about praying according to the will of God, they do not apply when you're alone.
Correct.
Right.
And if you don't end it in Jesus' name, you just wasted your time, God's time,
Oxygen.
oxygen.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
for sure. So, but
You're
anyways, so how do you guys feel about? Do you mind if I ask?
Oh, no, go
I'm
ahead.
curious how you. How
this
do you guys
is your podcast too.
feel? Right. Okay. yeah, thank
Today,
you.
just for
So,
today.
Just for today.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
plurality of elders,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yes.
Should all elders teach and preach?
I would say no, definitely no to preach. If they can, fine, but I don't think it's a requirement to preach. I think Paul is clear that a requirement to be an elder is the ability to teach. And I think teaching takes a lot of different pathways, right?
Right.
We have 6 elders at our church.
Okay.
1 is our primary preaching elder.
Okay.
Clearly, I would say preaching falls under the larger umbrella of
Right.
teaching. Michael is another one of our elders, and
Congrats.
he teaches on Wednesday nights. He'll teach Sunday school on Sunday mornings. he'll meet with people and teach in one-on-one settings.
Right.
We've got another guy who is an associate pastor, so we have 2 pastors on staff. He's primarily with the youth and young adults, very much in a teaching role. We've got another pastor who actually is a teacher by vocation.
Okay.
He'll also teach on Sunday mornings. We have another one who is our music minister.
Okay.
A lot. We'll preach some, we'll teach some. He's not doing it a lot, but definitely has the ability to, and does it several times a year, Curtis.
Yeah.
And then we've got another guy, Tim, who is a biblical counselor by vocation. And I think that is absolutely a different type of teaching. That's
for sure.
pastoring, counseling. It's more one-on-one, but even he will come along and teach Sunday school classes and things like that periodically.
Yeah.
So all 6 of them have the ability to teach and exercise it, but in very, very different ways that complement and kind of cover all of the different gaps that are needed to be covered.
For sure. I'll and our question, give you guys a heads up. Well, I don't know if I should say our question that Sarah wants to ask in this podcast.
No,
Save it?
no
Save it?
spoilers.
Okay,
Yeah, what are
cool.
you doing,
Well, I
man?
have a question then.
Yeah. Why can't I preach?
Why can't I? No, that's actually not my question, but we can talk about that because I'm fine talking about that. But I was just going to ask, what
That's
do you
an
feel like?
ironic thing to. Never mind. You're good. I'm
Am
sorry.
I'm sorry. I need to ask permission. Am I allowed to speak
Yes,
right
you're
now?
good to go.
Okay.
You're good to
I have
go.
to ask my
I was about to say,
husband.
Kiefer, you need to keep that woman in check.
Yeah.
You need to preach through
If
First
a
Timothy.
feminist wants to start listening, and this is the podcast they start with,
Yeah.
please know we're joking.
Yeah.
Kind of.
All right.
So, but what kind of
Are we?
screening in a way? Like, obviously, I'm assuming anyone who teaches on a regular basis or at all has to be a member, right? But before somebody can teach or preach, does your pastor really get to know them, or is there some sort of because you're not going to let anybody just walk in and start teaching the flock, right?
Well, yes and no, which I was thinking about this the other day because sometimes you have missionaries in
Yeah.
who you don't really know, but they come from an organization, and I guess you're putting your trust in that organization when they come in and teach or preach.
Yeah.
And so you kind of open up. But I guess if there's someone that's kind of homegrown, we have just a practical standard for us. We
Which they don't tell you until after the fact. They don't tell you the standards for teaching until you've passed them. I found that interesting. True or not true?
We're not trying to hide it. I mean, if someone, but we would like for someone to be here about a year.
Okay.
That's not that's not like a legalistic rule.
No.
He can't teach because he's got 3 more days. But it just gives someone time that you get to know them, they get to know you.
Okay.
That it's not like a flash in the pan type of thing.
So there's time to know someone's character before you let them.
And theology.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll say, I am a teacher in our church, but there are certain topics that I cannot teach because I am not in alignment with our elders, particularly eschatology. We are a progressive dispensational church by our statement of faith, and I am not a progressive dispensationalist.
Right.
That's open, that's discussed. We're not combative about it, but they've also said, because of your position on this, we're not going to let you teach eschatology. And you know what? Okay, that makes sense to me because
Really want to teach eschatology?
What?
I said, does anyone really want to teach eschatology? It's just a hard subject to teach, so
Yeah.
I definitely would.
I think it's
but
fun.
I also I agree with that because I think unity
Right.
in the essentials of doctrine precedes eschatology is not an essential.
Right.
Well, some of the finer points, some of the core pieces of eschatology.
Right.
Jesus is returning. I mean, there's some big things that if we're not in agreement on that, I'm questioning your salvation. But once we get outside of that, pre-mill, all-mill, post-mill, is there a rapture? Is there not a rapture? I mean, that type of stuff is so secondary. I'm not in agreement. Now, they don't mind me talking to people about my position, and I try not to be overly evangelistic towards the all-mill position that I hold, and so there's a general respect, and that kind of...
Or if it happens to come up, there's verses, as we're teaching through 1 John, or through Luke, there's times that you've said, and if you had a all-mill position, this is maybe how you would interpret this verse, and we're not that's different than saying, all right, I'm going to teach through Revelation
Yeah.
and Daniel and Matthew 24 or 25.
Yeah.
And like because right now we're teaching through 1 John, but we just got done with Luke not too long ago, and there were some pieces where it came up, and I said, "This is what the church believes. This is what I think that this is actually saying, and we're just going to move on." Like it didn't get into a knockdown, drag out. So
I think that's good though. I think that's really cool. And we had that we have a fair amount of post mill in our body, and then we have different. Some people fall on the A-mill, but non-partial preteristic or fully preteristic, or stuff like that.
Y'all have full preterists?
I think we have a full preterist. I may be wrong.
Isn't that problematic?
That's pretty problematic, I would say.
I mean, that's
no. Wait, no. I'm sorry. We don't. That's
okay,
wrong.
I was gonna say
No,
full preterism to me is like, are you a believer? Because
everything's done.
Right.
Yeah. No. I'm sorry. No,
Okay.
we do not. We do not have that. We have a couple post mill. I'm mixing preteristic and post mill peas. Sorry. Like fully.
Well, every word that starts with a P means the same thing, so I get it.
But no, we have some who are like full on hardcore post mill.
Are they theonomists?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I don't even know what that word means. Theonomist?
They check your tonsils.
Okay.
Largely, it's people who believe that government ought to be ruled by God's law.
Okay.
So it's. I don't know that they always go to the Mosaic law necessarily. Like, we're not necessarily saying we should be Old Testament Israel.
I should have gotten that from and I should have gotten God law.
Like a Jeff Durbin is into that. Not as aggressive as Bonson was, I think.
Greg
Bonson. Yeah. Yes. And but anyway, but we have that diversity, but we all worship together, and it's not like, well, we're out, you know, and that's how you kind of end up with a church on every corner, over kind of open-handed issues. But
and I think there's definitely things that, especially how it pertains to your idea of worship, that you may need to divide over, but not grumbly, not like hateful, but if you have certain expectations from what your service is going to look like versus someone else, then you probably need to divide. But I think the trend for churches has been don't ask questions, don't pretend like people had different views, and that's partly why we're seeing some of an exodus out, because our children are just not taught to think well and go, there may be someone who has a different opinion on this. Let me think critically about it and examine it, and what do I really think and why do I really think it, those types of questions.
And how big of a deal is it?
Right. Because
you and I aren't in lockstep on some issues.
Right.
But nothing essential.
Right. And if you put everything in that first category, then
good luck.
Yeah, who are you going to fellowship with?
Yeah.
There's a quote by James White on that I think is fantastic. He said, if everything is primary, then you have to draw a really tiny circle, stand on tiptoe, and eventually you're going to be out of your own circle.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I mean, so it just,
Right.
it's so ridiculous.
All right, well, is there anything else we want to talk about? We can carry this discussion over into the next podcast, but we're actually, that's one podcast in the books.
That's a mega, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sorry
that's
if I
good.
talked too
That's
much.
good.
No, Jumbo. I think Jumbo is the...
Jumbo.
Yeah.
Jumbo,
Yeah, it's not
okay,
mega or ultra.
Right.
All right, so you want to close this out?
Sure. Think well.
Do justice.
Love mercy.
And walk humbly. Thanks.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Mike and Mike Theology Plus, the podcast where we talk about all things related to Christian theology.